Okay. All right. Nice to meet you guys. I'm Dr. Tyler DeSplenter, and I'm one of the co-founders of Western Strength. So it's kind of cool to see that this club is still going on. We started it in 2016. I think officially 2017 it became registered. Um, but yeah, I've been in contact with the leadership as it changes over the years and seeing like, hey, can I help out at all? And so I talked to Jacob, and then he, himself or maybe the leadership decided, why don't you come talk to us about, Western Strength and whatever you want to share. So I put a presentation together. We'll go through it, and then at the end, you guys can ask me any questions you want. We can talk about Western Strength or powerlifting or programming, whatever you want to do. And so yeah, that's kind of my plan. Does that sound good? All right, cool. So today I want to put this thought in your mind because some of you haven't competed, you have competed, but you all lift, and so probably by now you've seen or understood that lifting has given you something. Maybe you've been injured; it might also take something away, right? But hopefully, I want to emphasize this idea today, and not just about like the acute thing you get from lifting, the stress, the repair, the extra strength, or the winning the contest. But I want to share my story a bit and about like what it can give you in terms of the rest of your life on top of the lifting. So I call this presentation The Gift of Lifting, and hopefully you guys will get the sentiment as we go through it. So today I'll just take you through kind of four things. One, I'll give you a little bit of introductory about myself and like where I started. And then Jacob asked me like three questions that were kind of like, what is powerlifting, or like, what does it mean to you? Why did you build Western Strength, or what's the kind of story there? And then what's like the impact of powerlifting, lifting, and all that? And that is going to really tie into what I'm trying to get at with the gift of lifting. So let's start with the backstory. This is me when I was a teenager. Nice flow. But to be honest, how I felt and which kicked this all off was I was fat, I was anxious, and I was lost. I had some, family and stuff going on that we don't have to get into, but I kind of just felt like I don't know what to do with my life. Doesn't feel good. And I want it to be better. And I sent you that line there. I wasn't good enough. That's kind of what I felt all the time, right? How do I go about changing this? Well, I tried different things. I've tried playing guitar. I did sports, but I still felt this way. But I had one person, which is my uncle Ray J, which you'll see here in a second. He believed in me. He used to train when he was probably your guy's age. And so he knew the benefits of it. And so he kind of like made this outlet for me. So when I was about 16, he set up this little gym in one room of his house. Eventually it would get to the basement, but that's what I did. I just started lifting with my uncle Ray J. And this is what that looked like. So this is me a couple years in. That's Uncle Ray J. And I think it's 225 bench or something. And so what happened is I started out not strong at all, maybe a 95-pound bench or something. And a few years later, with this guy's help, I got to, this kind of weights, squatting or deadlifting around the same, right? And what I found out was like, well, maybe I still don't feel good enough, but something's working, right? I'm getting stronger. I got stronger first than Uncle Ray J. And, was like a average strength for a 40-something-year-old man, right? Pretty strong guy. I got stronger than my friends who also were training. And then I got stronger than the people in my hometown gym, which in the grand scheme of things, especially now you can see online, they weren't very strong. But compared to where I started, they were really strong, right? Like a 315 bench was like, wow, this is crazy, right? So something was working, and I was like, this is great. I'm like making progress. I'm starting to feel better about maybe how I look. mentally I still didn't really feel good about myself, but it was on the right path. And then I came to Western and I went to the gym, and actually the gym used to be here in the UCC in 2008 and 2009. I think it was. Now it's the WSRC. And I got here and I was just like, whoa, there's like this jump up, right? There's football players, and rugby and all the sports we have, people training like that. And then also people who were, doing strength sports. And so I got curious, like, how are these guys, and some women too, how are they so strong? And so I asked some of them, and that led me to strength sports, right? And so the first one I kind of learned about was powerlifting. I liked it because it was simple and because you could do it in any gym. So it's just, if you guys don't know, it's the squat, the bench press, and the deadlift. 3 attempts, take your best lift, you get a total. And then your goal is to maximize that total, doing different things. And obviously you want to increase all 3 lifts, but that's the goal. And then as I got more into it, then what it really is a minimization of distance traveled kind of sport, right? So that's why you see big arches when you bench, right? You're minimizing that distance. Why you put a low bar, the bar low on your back so you can minimize the distance. Same with the deadlift. You're trying to keep your arms as tight towards you as possible, right? So you minimize the distance. And so I was like, okay, so it's not just like lifting, but there's like some kind of optimization problems. And as an engineer, that's like how I thought about this. So like, oh, that's really cool. So I started pursuing it. I started like, maybe I'll kind of train for powerlifting. I don't know if I'll compete, but I'll try to like build these 3 lifts up. And I also found I really liked doing overhead presses. So just with a barbell, dumbbells, whatever. And so I just kind of trained like that. If you've ever seen or been to a powerlifting meet, this is kind of what it looks like when you're on the platform. I think this was 2016 for me, something like that. So you see here, you get your 3 lifts in. I think these are my 3 third attempts. And then you get your total, right? And hopefully your total is bigger than everybody else's. And you win a nice plastic trophy or a medal, and you go home and your mom puts it on the fridge. So that was powerlifting, and I thought that's like really cool. And it gave me this like outlet to, I said like I wasn't good enough. This was a way where I could control a part of me to make it better, right? So that's what was so exciting. And I started going through it and it was cool. But then I like did these powerlifting meets, and along the way I started hearing about strongman. And when I put the 2 beside each other, I was like, man, this one's really boring. And this one over here seems really exciting. Not a dig against powerlifting. I think it's a cool sport as well. But to me, something drew me to strongman. And so my first contest actually was strongman. It would have been powerlifting, but I hurt my back really bad the year when I was planning to do my first meet. And things turned out that strongman was where I ended up being my first show. So if you've never watched strongman, essentially it comes from this ancient practice of lifting odd objects. What our ancestors used to do is lift stones, right? If you lift the heaviest stone, you get to be the chieftain, you get to be the chief's bodyguard, you get to lead the military, you get the biggest reward of whatever, thing you're doing. But that's how it started, just lifting odd objects. Here you'll see I'm lifting a circus dumbbell. This one's a plate loadable one, as opposed to maybe the globe style that the people a couple hundred years used to lift. But basically that's it. You pick up odd objects. There's some rules and stuff, but it's basically like whoever lifts the heaviest object, or sometimes so it's a 1 rep max. Sometimes it's like heavy, but for lots of reps. So repetition efforts. Sometimes it's like decently heavy, but you have to run with it, right? But whoever completes that task the fastest is the strongest. It's objective, just like powerlifting, right? But it's a bit more dynamic and varied. So that kind of caught my eye. If you never watched strongman, essentially how it works is scoring is done by placing. So if you have 10 people in your group, it's reverse to the order you place. So first place would get 10 points, last place would get 1 point, or 10th place would get 1 point. And if you don't lift it at all, you get 0 points. And those days suck. But so that's strongman. And that really, both these things, powerlifting and strongman for me were like early in my career. I did both of them. I wasn't sure what I wanted to do. So I'll just show you if you haven't seen strongman. This is a really cool press medley that we did. So first you see a circus dumbbell plate loadable. You had to do 1 rep with each hand. Then we pressed a fire hydrant, right? Pretty cool, something unique. And then a stone. So you can see hopefully you see the idea here of odd objects, right? Just things that are heavy things laying around. So in a medley like this, it's about completing it all as fast as you can, right? So you get a time limit if you complete them all. Sometimes you get time limits on each implement, depends on the promoter. But you see here, so that was an axle, a thick bar with tires. And then the last one here is a log press, which is probably the most famous strongman movement. So that kind of was strongman for me. And early on, and powerlifting, I said they were mixed together. And I kind of really enjoyed both. And what I did was I was getting good. I was getting, what would I say, competitive in a regional level. But I really wanted to push my body. And I knew it was going to be hard. I didn't say this before, but I have pretty bad asthma. As you imagine, that's probably a big hindrance to doing any kind of sports, right? So I thought, okay, well, that's going to be a deterrent. I better find out the best ways I can maximize things. So I did what I thought I would do with the other pursuits in my life, which was find people who know more. So I sought out the best. So I don't know if you guys know any of these names, but these are some that I learned from. Bill Kazmaier is 3 times world's strongest man. So I went to one of his seminars, learned a lot from him. Stan Efferding at one time was the world's strongest bodybuilder. So he was an IFBB pro, and he had 2,300 something powerlifting total, I believe, at 45 years old. Andrei Milanichev, he had the world record squat with wraps in powerlifting. I worked with him. And then also on other things, Dr. Ken Kanakin is a really great chiropractor who puts on this conference every year in Mississauga called Swiss. And he brings together all these people from different domains of sports and injury prevention, and even some of these other people like Bill Kazmaier. So I've worked with him. The last 2 are pro Canadian strongmen. So they were mentors to me as I was coming up. I went to their shows. I went to train with them. But what I did in general was when I got stuck, I went and got help. And that's what I want to emphasize here. Sometimes you just feel like I'm asking stupid questions, right? But you'll never learn it if you don't go, seek out that knowledge. So that's what I did. I learned from these people and competed in those 2 sports. And to summarize kind of what these sports gave me were, these people emphasize the idea of aiming for something big, right? So like I said, Bill Kazmaier, 3 times world's strongest man. Stan Efferding, this crazy bodybuilder, powerlifter guy, right? So that's what I got from them. Just aim for something big. Now, you can't sugarcoat it either. You're going to experience all of these things, right? Whenever you aim for something big, you're going to be anxious about it, thinking about it. Right now, I have a contest set for February. My body's not good. I'm not in the best state it should be. I'm sore, and there's anxiety about that, right? It's coming up, and it's going to be here soon. Doubt, right? You're going to I don't think I can do this, right? Especially that first meet. There's fear the day of, leading up to. And then, if you guys do these kind of strength sports, it's inevitably painful, right? Just the training is. By injury, it comes. So, you can't get away from this, but you can prepare for it. So, but if you want to, the thing I learned about this was aim for something big, because if you do, then you can earn something big. But if you never aim for it, then you're never going to get there. And you might never get there. I'm not where I need to be or where I'd like to be, but I've done some amazing things, I think. And that's because I aimed for something really big. I always competed Like, so when I started strongman, there's no weight classes. So when I was 200 pounds and there's a 450 pound guy there, we just lift the same weights, right? Um, that's fine. But same with like, I'm a natural athlete. In strongman, it's almost exclusively no drug testing. That's fine too, right? But I like always aimed up, keep looking up, and like, who cares what those people do? Just try to do better than you did yesterday. And if you can do that, you can earn something big. And actually, this last year, I ended my 13th season of powerlifting and strongman. I finally won a contest. I don't know how many times I've came second place. Um, Probably more than I'd like to admit. But I finally put it all together on one day, and there I am standing there, right? So I earned something huge. That my whole goal this whole time. I won powerlifting meets in my weight class, but my goal was to win a strongman show. Hopefully, it doesn't take you as long to do your goals as it did for me. But it took me 13 seasons and everything that came along with that. But it happened. But even despite that, say I never won, I still had all these things happen. So I became stronger, way stronger than where I started. Which you'll see. I thought you might want to know my lifts, so I'll share some of my best lifts later. But think about coming from like a 95-pound bench press, maybe like a 135-pound squat and deadlift, right? As a teenager, all the way to where I'll show you. It made me faster. It helped me. Um, it helped me, like, I used to play touch football, got way faster from this kind of training. It made me more disciplined in general. So I can take on really hard challenges in the rest of my life as well that I never used to be able to. It made me more resilient. Things come up, no problem. I've done way harder sets in the gym than whatever this problem presents. And in general, I would argue it's made me a better human, like overall, more empathetic, more patient. Like I said, more ability to take on stress and help people and on all these things. So that's kind of like what powerlifting, strongman, and like strength sports has kind of given to me personally. And because all that stuff was amazing, it really got me into this building communities. I didn't go into strength sports thinking I would get into it, but maybe this is one of those gifts of lifting, right? So this is actually a shot from one of Western Strength's first meets that we did as a club, which I'll show you a few more pictures after. But how this started was I mentioned I was seeking out people. Well, not only was I seeking out experts, I was seeking out other people who just had a common goal, right? They might be not as strong as me. They might be way stronger than me. But maybe they're not like an expert yet. And so I just sought them out. So, for example, here is a gym I used to train at in Woodstock. They had a good training crew. And so I used to go there and train when I could. I used to go to people's garages, yards, wherever. Strongman still isn't in every gym. I'm sure there's not a log at the Western Rec Center, right? Like, or tires and shit you guys have access to. So I had to travel. I had to go around. I had to try to find people to come to me as well, right? The middle one here, this is my cousin. He came and trained with me for a bit. And then do any of you know the guy on the right here by chance? No? That's all right. That's our other co-founder of Western Strength, Jonathan During. So in about 2016, when this thing started, I was training at the Western Rec Center, and I knew most of the like stronger people there who also did strength sports or kind of like lifted heavy. And then Mr. During came around, and I was like, man, this guy's a pretty good squatter. Like, I saw him week in, week out doing like, between 4 and 5 plates. I was like, oh, that's pretty good for your body weight, right? And I started talking to him. And this basically was the interaction that led to the first kind of community I was part of, which was Western Strength. And it was basically born out of conversation. So this is, you see in the picture here, Jonathan and I don't have a nicer picture of the two of us. It would have been nice to have a nice founding picture, but this was us at the first meet. And basically, I started talking to John every time, and I'd see him and sometimes train with them squats in the rec center. And what we found was we both knew other people who were, interested in getting stronger. And then we started hearing complaints because we started talking like, hey, maybe we should like train together, have organize some training sessions where like a bunch of us people just get together. And then people were like, oh, well, I like weightlifting and like I can't do that here because we don't have bumper plates. And so like if I drop them, then someone's going to come yell at me, right? Or like I don't have a room. I don't know how I haven't been to the rec center lately, but it's like there's just little pathways between the racks, and people are kind of all over the place because there's so many people you're trying to fit in there. So basically, we're hearing like there's a lack of equipment, there's a lack of space, and on top of that, there's a lack of like there's a big community of these different people who want to pursue strength in their own ways, but there's a lack of like cohesiveness where those people could say present a case to the people who run Western Rec, like, hey, could we get this equipment in? Or could we try like having a space carved out for this? I remember us even talking about could we have a different space in the rec center, like a different room, and we would purchase equipment and like keep it there for the Western Strength members, right? Or, before it was really a club for those people. And so that was the idea, is like we had these problems, and Jonathan and I thought, all right, let's why don't we make this a club? Because that way it's official. You'll be able to have a bit more leverage with the people who run the school, right? And it'll kind of make it a bit more official. And then you'll be able to get some funding, right? So we could buy some equipment or things like that. So we decided to put it together. And at first we didn't pursue the like official club status. We kind of just got the people together, had chat groups, and we just like trained together. So that's how we started. But then we actually, got we had some more people come on with Jonathan and I and like help us get it going. And we started just kind of like doing group activities together. So this top picture here is probably most of the original Western Strength Club in about 2017. You see I'm back there flexing. And it's a whole mix of people, right? Different weight classes. Not all of these people were competing either. So what was really cool is like as a club, we went to this meet here in London, and like the other members came and helped, right? Some people helped coach. Some people helped in the warm-up room, like loading plates and stuff. There wasn't any equipped lifting of these members, so we didn't have to worry about that. But there was people there just like making sure people had food, drinks. It was kind of like this big club activity we did together. So that was kind of our first like meet together. And then we started a website, westernstrength.ca, which I don't see as active anymore. But the whole idea there was we were hearing from members like, what do I do about X? Like I'm stuck here, or I want to know about powerlifting. I want to get into it. And I do weightlifting now, but this seems pretty cool. Or what's strongman? Where's a local show? And so we made this website to just kind of put information out. So a few people like myself, you see the gentleman second from the right, that's Tyler. Ben Dietz, a big deadlifter on the end in the back there, and Jonathan. The four of us put up blogs. So we started writing and like giving information out. And then, we just kind of had this community where we're like sharing information. And then we tried to hold sessions like this, where people could come and like ask questions, Q&As. We could bring in like a nutrition expert or whatever. And so that's actually the bottom picture, I think is from 2018 or 2017, but we did a powerlifting panel. So all of us there were competitive powerlifters, and we had the rest of the club and whoever else was or wanted to join come in and basically just do like a panel style Q&A. And so those are the kind of like activities we started with: going to meets, powerlifting. I don't remember us going to any weightlifting meets because I don't think we had many weightlifting members. I think I was the only one doing strongman, so nobody really came to that. But powerlifting was easy and accessible, so that's kind of how the club, kind of got started. And then we just kept it going. This is from another meet, I think, at Seneca College, but same thing. This is only a fraction of the group, so in 2017-18, it started to grow more. I don't remember how many members total, but I want to say like 70 or something like that. We got to where most of them were like power lifters or wanted to lift to make themselves stronger, right? And so, yeah, that's kind of how the club went. And then for me, unfortunately, I left Western. I moved away, and so I didn't really keep tabs on it. But I know the club ran like collegiate meets here. I think at this meet and another meet, we won strongest school in the OPA, so the Ontario Powerlifting Association. You can compete as like a club or like a collegiate team. And I know we did a couple meets here, hosted them that were collegiate meets. And so that's kind of my knowledge so far. So maybe after, if you guys know more, we can chat about what's happened since then. But this was the community building part that I never thought I'd be part of, but just kind of happened. I'm really glad it happened because like now you guys are here today and I get to come back a decade later and like kind of reflect on all this, which is really cool. So just another gift of lifting that was given. But for me, I didn't stop there. I kept in like strongman, especially and powerlifting. Um, if you've never been to those meets, and I would emphasize this even more for strongman, when you go there, it's like a brotherhood or a sisterhood. Like every when I'm on the field, like deadlifting or running with a yoke or something, or you're doing it, I hope that you fail. I want to win. But the second that we're out of that fight mode, it's like how could I want to beat you, but like how can I wrap your knees for you? Can I get your belt? Like, can I make sure that you? And it's like that kind of atmosphere, right? So that drew me in, and I was like, man, I need more of this. And through this Western strength, I was like, maybe I can help make it accessible to other people, keep it going. So this is me here in at Ontario Strongest Man, a contest we no longer run, but it was professionals and amateurs. And so all of these guys, except for me and one other gentleman on the far right standing up top, were amateurs. The rest are pros. I don't know if you watch Strongman or not, but this gentleman here, Wesley Derwinski, and that guy up there holding the cup, Maxime Boudreau, those are World's Strongest Man finalists. So again, I was saying about seeking out experts and like getting embedded in the community. This is what I did. I think I failed 2 events out of 5. I got last place. But what was really cool is when I did that, before these people wouldn't really share their secrets with me. But after that, they all came up and shook my hand and were like, you're part of the brotherhood now. And they like started, talking to me about how to get better. And I love that. And I wanted to keep pursuing that. And so ever since that, I've been trying to go to contests. As I'll talk to later, I've had some businesses around lifting. I've tried to sponsor and promote a lot of shows. And the good thing is it's growing. So like this is a show I went to in 2024. So just one show. And there's a whole bunch of regional shows now in Ontario that are all sanctioned. And there's like, 50, 60 athletes now at all these shows. At nationals this year, I think there was almost 200 athletes, strongman athletes. There's now weight classes for there's gender classes, so male and female. There's weight classes, 5 or 6 of them for each gender. And now there's even age classes, so 40 plus and 50 masters 50 plus. There's novice, there's adaptive athletes. So there's like world's strongest disabled man now. So they have one for physical disabilities and for mental disabilities. So it's really cool. This community is growing. And I kind of thought about like taking a step back and looking at this was like pretty awesome growth. Now compared to other sports, this is really small. But for example, here, strongman, when I started, had maybe like 100 competitors, people who actually go to the shows. There might be people who train it but don't go, right? Like 100 or so, and now it's probably 500 to 1,000 competitive athletes in Canada. So it's like really grown, and obviously Western Strength is part of that, right? You guys said you didn't compete yet. Maybe through this you'll compete, and now you become part of that. And I'll tell you, when you do that, you become emboldened. You become a better human, as I suggested, and you inspire others to do the same thing. And so this is kind of for me why I like this now, even though I didn't plan on having any kind of community building, is because I see the ripple effects. For powerlifting, in 2016, Open Powerlifting said there was about 3,300 competitive athletes that year in Canada. Now there's 4,700. So, things are slowly going and are growing. And so I think that's like a great sign of what's, happening. And I hope we can keep going, and hopefully I can convince you about continuing your lifting journey, and you can help this grow even more. So I'm just going to grab a drink, but that's kind of my experience with community building. I'll get into some of it where like I have businesses that kind of helped with this. But I think I've really enjoyed being part of the community. And I like that Western Strength still exists today. It's pretty awesome. So now this is my last section here. I want to talk about the impacts lifting has had in my life kind of holistically, with the idea of them being gifts. Of course, everything I'm going to share, there's hardships and things that come along with it, but I want to focus on the positive. So, what are the impacts that lifting has had on me? Well, first of all, I don't know if I can say the strongest because there's no real ranking right now, but I think I'm the or one of the strongest natural strongmen in Ontario. So, if Uncle Ray J didn't believe in me and I didn't pick up those dumbbells, the old like 1-inch bars with the concrete plates and stuff. If I didn't pick that shit up and start lifting it, then I wouldn't become this. And so if I'm not the strongest in Ontario, I'm one of them. And so that's like a huge accomplishment that lifting, just starting that 20 years ago, has brought me to where I am today. More specifically here, I said I've had 13 straight seasons of strength sports. The first few were mixed powerlifting and strongman. I realized I wasn't getting good at either one. So I thought, and I was telling you, Jacob, I went into strongman because I'll be able to do that more while I'm younger. And when I get beat up, then I can go stand in one spot and lift weights or lay down on a bench for one, right? So now my focus is on strongman until, that kind of day comes where me or doctors or somebody tells me I can't run with weights anymore. But basically, I've done 5 powerlifting meets and 34 strongman contests over this time, and I have 19 podium finishes. So not a bad win rate there. And this past year, I have 2 international records in this federation called the International All-Around Weightlifting Association, who basically does only barbell records, like the old-timey stuff with like pullover benches and like crazy grip barbells, dumbbells, all this stuff. This was one of them I did, which is basically like a concentric only Zercher deadlift. So you pick the barbell up. So that was one of them. And then most importantly for me, and I have asthma so bad that when I was a kid, I almost died a few times, had to be hospitalized. And I've come all the way to this. Now I can compete without using inhalers. And it's like, asthma has always said like, well, you have this thing, good luck kind of thing, right? No one's ever said you can cure it or you can make it better. And through doing this, I've been able to do that. So my last like 3 contests or so, I haven't had to use my inhalers, which is like a miraculous kind of thing. Now we get to the part that I know you guys really care about here. What's my biggest lifts? So I told you kind of where I came from, right? And it's taken me a long time. I've chose to do it my way, which I've described. That's fine. But these are some of my biggest lifts. So lifting, that dumbbell, that barbell I picked up all those years ago, this is where it got me. So I've done a 405 bench. I pressed a 350-pound log. That's probably one of my favorite lifts and best accomplishments. And then a few others there that I've kind of racked up over the years. And like I said, I think I still have lots of time left. So hopefully next time I talk to you, those numbers will be inflated. So that's kind of like personally from a sport or strength perspective, what I've accomplished just from picking up weights and trying to better myself, trying to address that feeling instead of I'm not good enough. So now I'll move on to another one, something else that lifting has got me. So obviously you guys know who this handsome fella is. It's me, but this picture was from maybe my third or fourth strongman contest. And I posted this on my Facebook, because obviously look at it. Like, look at how look at how cool I look, right? So I put it up there, like, hey, I do strongman, whatever, just put it on there. And this is what it got me. It got me a family. So if I ask my wife, she says what happened is she saw that picture that you just saw on Facebook, and she asked me to go to a party, and the rest is history. And so here's me picking her up. I eventually got her to train with me, strongman, which was so cool. That was like amazing. You have a partner and you guys can like do this athletic thing together, make your bodies healthy. Really cool experience. And this is also what it got me. These are my three daughters here. And one of the best feelings in life is, training feels great, right? Or sometimes it sucks. You don't want to be there, but afterwards it feels great. Well, when you have kids and they train and get stronger because you inspire them to do so, I haven't had much better feelings than that. That's like an amazing thing I've experienced. So this was at the meet where you saw I had that Zercher deadlift record. The three of them got to come watch me, and my oldest filmed it. And so that's something that this is a gift of lifting, right? If I didn't lift those weights and then somebody take that nice picture, then she would have never saw it, and maybe I wouldn't have had that, right? So a really amazing gift that I didn't plan on all those years ago, but hopefully one that inspires you guys that, like, even if you don't compete, just that act of lifting can lead to amazing things. So on another stream here, lifting got me to become a doctor. So I have a doctorate in engineering that I got here at Western. I did my bachelor's here too in software engineering. And because I was so obsessed with motion and trying to maximize my performance, then I went into rehabilitation robotics and motion sensing. So I became an expert at how can I sense the motion you're trying to do from looking at the electrical signals in your muscles and command a robot to help you when you're injured, right? So you had a surgery and now you can't move, but I can detect you're trying to move. Can I have a robot kind of assist you? And so that whole field of study opened up to me because I was lifting and I was so interested on how can I like better understand human motion and help people get stronger and rehabilitate through engineering practices. And so I got the degree, but through that, it's like I became a published scientist. This is me presenting one of my papers, I think hungover. But anyways, so it got me to conferences. I'm a published scientist. And then also it's gotten me connected with other organizations or communities. So I've published, first of all, for Western Strength. I mentioned I had a blog and I'd write articles about different aspects of strength. Starting Strongman is a popular website back in the day for people who wanted to start Strongman. And I had an article on there. Elite FTS, if you haven't heard of them, they're like one of the biggest publishers of, what would I say, non-academic articles about strength training, and they sell equipment and stuff like that. November, I just had my second article published there. And then Human Kinetics, which if you're in kinesiology or whatever, some of your textbooks will be published by Human Kinetics. I just did some filmed lectures for them. So it's like, here's another gift that lifting got me, right? It got me interested in this thing, become a doctor, and now I'm interacting with these other communities and hopefully having an impact there. All right, a couple more slides. Along my journey, I mentioned strongman equipment still, isn't in Western Rec. It's nowhere to be found. Most places, my garage is probably has the most strongman equipment, and I'm in Tillsonburg in like 100-kilometer radius, right? So in order to train for strongman, I had to build equipment. So I had to, back in the day, I started building equipment. I was getting people to help me with the, can you do the metal work? Or my uncle Reggie I showed you, he'd find some people to help with the metal work. Both my grandfathers were carpenters, so I've been doing woodwork since I was 4 or something. And so I started making stuff for myself, and then slowly people were like, "Hey, I can't get this. Can you make me this? Hey, can you make me an actual circus dumbbell?" And what I really loved is I combined my love of the wood with the need for the steel, and I made these like beautiful, basically pieces of art, right? That are also you can throw around and lift heavy weights on. And I shipped them all over North America. One of the first pieces I sold was a pair of deadlift blocks, and it was to Western Rec. I don't know if they're still there. Maybe they've been beat up and they're wooden blocks and thrown away. But and then it just grew from there. And so this was another thing that lifting, gave me this gift. It was like a need, right? I had to make equipment because I couldn't get it. But then it turned into all these sales and this whole business. And for a couple of years, this was how I supported my family. I showed you. Now, what happened here is the pandemic happened. Prices went through the roof for me, and I no longer could compete. As you can imagine, strongman's a small sport as it is, and so unfortunately, this wasn't profitable enough, and Northern Warrior Strength Systems came to an end a few years ago. But that didn't stop me from pursuing business. So now, lifting has given me this next gift, which is strength intelligence, and this is my current business. So what I decided was like making equipment wasn't profitable enough, but I still wanted to help people. I wanted to grow the community and basically give that knowledge that I've accumulated over all the years. And I also accumulated some knowledge that nobody has on the planet Earth. And I published it here in my first book, Foundations of Strongman Training. So last November, I launched this business with that book publication. And I basically, for the decade before that, while I was doing all this other stuff I told you about, I was doing my own original research on strongman training. And I couldn't find like a publisher, so I published it myself. And so now Strength Intelligence is this business where I'm focused on just providing as good of evidence-based or science-based research I can on strength training. Obviously, with the focus on strongman, because that's what I'm interested in. But I would argue that if you want to be the strongest version of yourselves, you should train like a strongman. There's a reason that those people are called world's strongest man or world's strongest woman, and they train a certain way. And I think even if you don't compete, you could too. But we can talk about that later. So now I have this business. This book was another gift that came. This is a screenshot from courses I've been making now. So like Foundations of Strongman Training is really in-depth, technical about the research. Strong Foundations was this program I made, and then I made a course to teach people about the 4 essential barbell lifts, which are squat, bench press, deadlift, and overhead press, or clean and press, right? And so that's kind of what I'm doing there. The other thing I've been doing with this business is trying to take those experiences I had from my engineering domain with sensors and bringing them into the weight room. So you see here, I have a sensor which you can't see that's strapped to that barbell, and I'm measuring the velocity of it, right? Some of you guys might have seen this or heard of velocity-based training, but I think that there's, we can, in the future, and hopefully I'm part of this, you will be able to improve our training outcomes by measuring stuff. So imagine a day, and I'm hoping to build a gym like this, where your rack is sensorized and you just connect to it and it tracks all your data for you and gives you, better insights about what load you should use or what, sets or reps you should do or things like that. So I'm starting that kind of journey with this business. And then the other thing I do is when I find the right people, coach them. So this was from a seminar I did in September, but I like doing stuff like this, speaking and trying to help people get better. I love getting in the weight room and helping people. And I have had a really good track record of getting people super strong, super fast. And so with Strength Intelligence, that's what I'm trying to do. So just to summarize here, I hope I gave you now a whole bunch of ideas about what lifting can do for you that aren't making your, bench press go from 2 plates to 3 plates, right? It can give you so much more. I mean, it's given me this community. Western Strength is one of those things. I talked about businesses, family, education, right? Research, all this stuff. And so my argument here is that to try to see lifting for more than just the acute thing you're looking at right now. That stuff's fun and it's great. And it's actually really good for you as long as you don't get injured, right? Um, but that lifting can just lead to so much more. And the stronger you guys can make yourself, the more you'll inspire people, even if you don't try to and you don't do it directly, right? Your siblings will say, holy man, you look really good, right? Oh, you're strong. Like, bring them to a contest. And when you have kids, they'll see you do it. There's just like all this goodness that can come from lifting. And so hopefully today I've like shown for myself what that's turns into, and hopefully that inspires you guys to keep going. Whether you compete or not doesn't matter. It's just about the effort you put into it, and if you do, you'll get good things out of it. So if you guys want to follow anything I do, like I said, my business is Strength Intelligence. That's how to get a hold of me. And with that, I'll stop yapping. All right. Thank you very much for listening.
I had a question about one part of it, specifically kind of like around your family.
Yep.
And because I was kind of like thinking about this a little bit myself, like I never really want to lose powerlifting like as a part of my life.
Yep.
But then I was kind of thinking about, I was like, how do you balance work, your family, and plus training, and like so that you're not really losing a part of each of those?
Mm. Yeah, that's a great question. I actually have had people over the years say that to me a lot. This notion of like, how do you do it? I think something to think about how you do it is you just make it a priority, and then you move things around to do it, to get all those things done. And I wouldn't say don't look at balance as like, the scales of justice or whatever, like that kind of an example. It's not going to be like a 50-50, right? Because there's more than two things that you're trying to do, and they might not all be equally distributed, and you might not even want that, right? um, so I guess first is just like making things a priority. The second thing that I'll have to admit is not sleeping enough is probably how I do a lot of it. So it's like I have all this training, I have a wife and kids, I have a full time job, I have a business that I'm trying to build on the side, right? And then all the other stuff that comes along with life. And so I would say I probably don't sleep enough, is like how I get through it. But it's really just about like time management, right? So, like, if you just think, these things are bad for if you want to get lots of stuff done. They can be great too. Like they help me promote my business, but like I could spend 6 hours just looking at it, right? Instead of like playing with my kids, or instead of doing the training I need to do. So you can just unless you're like already you know at the top 1% of like maximizing your time management, I'm sure you can find some time somewhere, right? Where it's just like, like maybe, for example, I cook all my meals and they each take me an hour. Well, maybe a couple of those you should buy ready-made meals, and now you have more time for whatever you want, right? So it's just about like reassessing because life's going to change, and then like your priorities are going to change, and just like kind of committing to it, right? I want this thing, I'm going to make time for it, right? Yeah. So it's not easy, but yeah, you can do it, and not everyone will be happy either, right? And you have to like that's why you have to really think about what you want. It's like you want to train because you have these big goals or they're going to get you somewhere. But maybe your wife doesn't like lifting and she doesn't care at all. And so there's going to be, how do you manage that, right? Give her the time she needs. You get to do this, and you're going to have compromises, right? But yeah. Does that answer your question? Yeah.
I was also kind of curious on, prior to the presentation, you mentioned you kind of developed a pretty good process of rehab.
Yep.
And just dealing with the injuries, I've kind of been thinking about that a lot lately, and how I can get back to training as safely and quickly as possible. So I'm sure that could have a whole presentation in itself, but if you could kind of give like a little summary of some of the things that you've developed and the best way to go about it after getting an injury.
Yep. Great question. Actually, hopefully it will come out in 2026, but I just did a kind of a lecture about part of this for human kinetics, like I was talking about. The first thing I would like, there's some principles, right? So the first thing is get assessed, right? Unless you're, even if you're a doctor of physiotherapy, it's hard to assess yourself. So I'm actually, hopefully the strength intelligence can work on tools for integrating with sensors to help with stuff like that. But right now, that's like the first thing. Get an assessment, get multiple assessments, right? And really understand your problem. Because like, yeah, you don't have to be a doctor of physical therapy to understand, someone to tell you what muscles are affected, and you can go look them up so you can visualize them and you can understand their function, where they insert, where they originate, and how they're supposed to work, what kind of ranges of motions. So most people can just like, you can go to ChatGPT and they'll spit that out in 3 seconds, right? So that's the first thing, is like understand your problem. Because if you don't understand your problem, then how can you know what solution to apply? Right? So that's one thing. The other thing is, in general, here is like rehab first approach. So when you're hurt, you do. I like to think about it as rehab training, because it actually is training. It's just a different goal versus my powerlifting training or whatever, right? So I call it training, but you have rehab training and you have powerlifting training. And to get to go over here, you have to do some combination of both of them at different time periods. So when you start your rehab journey, all of it is rehab training, and you treat it just like your powerlifting training. You go into the gym, you do the stretches, the exercises, you hydrate, you do all the stuff you would do. You treat it just like training, just as seriously. And maybe you have to do it multiple times a day, right? Depending on how severe your injury is or whatever. And then what happens is once things start to go good, then you transition to some portion of it becomes the normal training or some other version, right? To kind of step you towards where you want to go. And then your rehab training is just the thing you do first, right? It's like your first 4 exercises, and then the last 4 are your training you kind of want to get into. And then over time, what happens is that proportion changes. And eventually you get back to, and what I do is my rehab training becomes my warm up. And then it becomes preventative training, right? Because like if something's injured, it's because you've neglected it. It's likely to rear its ugly head again. So do something about it all the time. And what people don't tell you is the more you, I want to say strengthen your body, but hurt your body, the more work you'll have to do overall. And if you have big injuries, there might be some motion you have to do to keep it loose and strong for the rest of your life. You might have to do them every day. And so that's something we don't get told. But that's my kind of mental approaches. So you have these proportions, and at the start it's all rehab, and then eventually you get strong and healthy again, and it's mostly powerlifting. But at your warm ups, at least, become some kind of preventative maintenance. Just like you have your car, right? Take it for oil changes once in a while. Just like stretch your groin, like just kind of like basic stuff to keep you going. Yeah. So, anyways, that's hopefully, does that give you a good overview? Like you said, we could go into lots of yeah, yeah, and I'm happy to do that. If people are interested in that, yeah. Good question though, but yeah, there's a lot that goes into it, and if you're smart about it, you can get way further ahead than the conventional wisdom. I've had even sports chiropractors that I went to go see when I hurt my back again just say, well, I think I was like 25 at the time, and they're just like, oh, maybe this is it for you. And I was like, oh, that's what is. And this person, I think, was like a sports chiropractor for the major teams in town here. And I was like, is that what you tell those athletes too? Like you tell the London Knights, like, oh, sorry, bud, maybe it's just like, so that kind of stuff inspired me to say, you know what, fuck you guys. Pardon my French, but I was like, that's how frustrated I was, right? We're going to do something different. Then I just taught myself and went through the pain. And then through all that and talking to experts and all the stuff I said today, then you can learn how to, do it a better way and a faster way. Yeah. Yeah. Any other questions? Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, so you mentioned that you did your undergraduate in engineering.
Yep.
I was just wondering, like, how early on did you kind of marry this idea of engineering and strength?
Good question. I think it really came. Hey, thanks for joining. Yeah, for sure.
Just drove back to London.
All good. So for me, I think they came together after I hurt my back. That was like a big driver. So I I graduated from my bachelor's in 2013, and the year before I said I wanted to do my first powerlifting meet. That year, I had disc herniations in my lower back doing a deadlift in Western Rec. And when I went to the Fowler Clinic here and got some good assessment, but I really didn't get good advice about how to rehabilitate. Because like you got to think most physiotherapists or chiropractors that kind of domain think like I'm getting you back to normal for the average person, which is you can feed yourself, you can wipe your own ass, you can go to work, right? Like that's kind of that's normal. That's not my normal. That's not your normal, right? My normal's way over here. Um, but I did what they said, and it took me about like 18 months or something to get under. I heard it on a 405 deadlift, and it took me about 18 months to get to there again and be like confident. And that whole time, that's when my wheels were spinning. Like, holy shit! It's like, is there a better way to do this? Like, well, I'm an engineer. Can we engineer a solution? Can I look at it like that? And it's like, is there data I can gather that will help? And then so you look at the literature, especially for strongman or people who do that kind of stuff. There's not a lot there. There's wisdom of some people on this earth if you can get to them in person, but there's nothing there. And then in my capstone project was really where I had this group and we were trying to decide what we're going to do. And I was like, I I know about IMUs, inertial measurement units, and we can measure like the things in your phone that measure the motion of your phone, right? I was essentially like, well, what if we just hold on one and like we can like measure our bicep curls, right? Like it'll be cool because I can like present like while I'm flexing and shit, and like we'll measure this stuff, right? So that's when it came together. I was just then we did it. We had like a handheld IMU, and we just like had people like myself performing bicep curls. We measured the data, and the system said, "Oh, you're going too fast or too slow, or you deviated too far in radial or ulnar deviation, or like whatever." We just put some prompts, and then it worked, like to some degree, as a capstone project does usually. But I was like, "Wow, this is cool. There's like something here. I think you can measure motion." And then that got me onto this idea of not just motion, but can I measure my training, right? So it's like even now it's like with my business I'm trying to make training management software, and there's some out there, but it's not until recently it's like I was just writing my training first in a book and then in a spreadsheet, and it's just like what happens when I want to like look for trends across this data and see like can I improve some, is there something that sticks out, right? So that was my engineer hat, kind of like thinking about how to process all these things, and that was like I guess where it all kind of took off from an engineering perspective. And then I was like, oh shit, like we can like make robots that help people when they're injured, and I can measure your electrical activity and predict where you want to move and then make you move, and then you can have physiotherapy every day if you need instead of every 2 weeks, and rehabilitation outcomes will be like way better. And I was like, yeah, that's great engineering, right? So yeah, that's kind of how it all went for me. Does that answer your question? Yeah. Cool. Any others? Yeah, go ahead.
What did you get your engineering degree in?
It's officially in computer and electrical, but it's actually mechatronics. And my specialty would be more in the control and software side. But mechatronics is like this mixture, right? You have mechanical, electrical, computer systems, sensors, and you mix it all together, software. Yeah. So I would say I don't fit in like one bucket anymore, like I did in undergrad. I was like, I'm in software, right? And then in the end, it was like, I'm just in the type of engineering that helps people move. And that's kind of the approach I've taken since then. Yeah. Does that answer your question?
Yeah.
Okay, cool.
So as an engineer that has businesses in like the strength industry, would you recommend it?
Would I recommend?
Going into the strength and sports industry as mentioned.
Oh, um, in my experience, um, from a financial standpoint, no. Um, I told you about my first business where I did all the mechanical testing and engineering of those products for people to lift, but it's pretty niche, so it didn't make me a lot of money unless I could scale up like Rogue Fitness or something, right? But then are you in it for the engineering? Maybe the guy designing it is, but that's the thing is like engineers great problem solvers. Um, but you have to solve problems that people have, right? So that's what the business part comes down to. There's definitely lots of like opportunity, I'd say these days in the like software and strength or fitness, right? With all the apps and data and stuff like that. But if you're like you said, you're mechanical, yeah. So like mechanical stuff, it's like unless you're going to work for Rogue Fitness or some kind of company like that, or start your own. There's not too much that I know of right now for engineering, right? But probably your best bet would be like a startup, start your own business, right? You see some problem, and you're going to apply your engineering to it, and that's probably the best way. Yeah, there's not a lot of unless you're software. I haven't seen too many jobs where it's like we need a mechanical engineer because we're making this amazing thing to help people with their strength. I'm hoping through my business activities I can get some of that, but I think it's like early kind of stages. The other thing, just to spoiler alert about rehab robotics, they're too heavy. They're not like they're too cumbersome. Um, so they're very hard to, unless you have like a facility, like a lab here at Western, where you might have seen them like those treadmill motion rooms, stuff like that. Your physiotherapist down the road isn't going to have that, right? Or they're not going to have $300,000 to buy a full exoskeleton suit that they can put people in that they don't really understand or can be guaranteed that it works a certain way. So I think like probably exciting stuff to come. But unfortunately, even for me who did a PhD in this stuff, commercial applications I think are a bit limited in this point. And then you get into this idea of like, well, aren't we just going to have robots that do all the lifting anyways, right? So we can all just be skinny, weak, amorphous blobs that don't move, right? So there's that kind of to contend with as well. For me personally, I think that's actually something I struggle with a lot is like, it is convenience eroding our need for strength, right? And how do those things play together? Obviously, it is to some degree, but it's like, I mean, you guys are still here. You still want to get strong, so there's some kind of needs or a want for this. But yeah, it's going to be an interesting. Like if you never had to lift something to get all the things done in your life again, like physically, would you be okay with? Would you still train? You know, and it's like a lot of people, if they don't have a competitive spirit, probably maybe they won't. I would argue that's not good, right? For your health, humans need to move, right? Movement's the cure, typically. So, yeah. Good questions, though. This was great. Any others?
How do you think like
strength training or just training in general like impacts like mental health and stuff? Because I sometimes kind of think mental health is a huge part of it as well.
Yep.
Any stronger, your body kind of helps it.
I think training is like one of the best developers of mental capability and character, right? You can put yourself through other stressful things, right? Like you could choose, like, I'm going to become a grandmaster chess player. And mentally, it's going to like force you to learn some discipline. You know, you'll learn some of those things. But I don't think it's as tangible as like, if I don't take this seriously, this 500-pound squat, it will break my spine, right? You know, it's like there's a different level there that builds this character and mental capacity. And I started my presentation off with why I started lifting was because I had this gut feeling, and I struggle with today, is I'm not good enough. Like I don't think myself of myself. You always have haters too, but it's like, so that's what started me lifting. And I don't think I'm good enough. I have things to accomplish and whatever. But my mental capabilities are so strong because I picked up dumbbells and barbells. Now when I go, it's like I became a doctor of engineering, which means that I worked on problems at the edge of human knowledge, right? And now when I go to businesses and stuff, it's just like I did hard stuff. It's like I lifted hard weights that I never thought was capable. Oh, you want me to figure out how to fix this line of code in your business problem that's arguably down here on the scale of difficulty? Whatever, right? So it's like lifting gave me that. It gave me that like um, problem solving, that critical ability. You know, when you guys might have experienced this, when you go into the gym and you do that lift and then it doesn't move, and you go there next week and it doesn't move, and you try this thing and it doesn't move, and you try that thing and it doesn't move, and you're sitting there frustrated, right? Um, but because you have this goal and that you're committed to, and it's physical like that, you just like, or at least I did, I just searched everywhere, tried everything, and eventually you find something that works. And sometimes it's just introspective. It wasn't like, oh, that program's a problem or that coach. It was like you had to look, it's like, I'm not taking this seriously. Like if I like, I'm not fueling myself properly, right? I didn't get 3 good meals like I had planned every day this week. And that's why I'm tired, and that's why I can't lift that thing, right? And so it's like that even analytics you learn from getting under the weights and like pushing yourself. So I think it's like a great character builder. Also, another mental aspect it's helped me with is like bullshit detection, right? So it's like you go online and people say all kinds of stuff, right? But it's like if you go get under the bar for a year, 3 years, whatever, it's like, you know, oh no, that's bullshit. I can see that. So it's like all kinds of different mental abilities. Every time you go in and you try a new weight, what do you have to have? Courage, right? Yeah, it's not go slay the dragon type courage, right? But it's just like that thing can hurt you. You have to be brave enough to try it. You have to overcome that fear. And so when you start doing that over and over, you get to a weight where it sticks or it's a lot of fear. And then you find a way to overcome that. And then other things in your life start to kind of dissolve into like, not that maybe you have confidence, but it's just like, you know, I did that thing over and over and over, and I made progress and I got to where I wanted to go. And so that stuff is kind of like trivial, right? So yeah, good question, but like so many mental aspects have been developed because like I started lifting weight, and I talked about some of the people I learned from too. Same thing. That's what I got from them. It's like different pearls of wisdom that were all not about the like, yeah, put your foot here or like squeeze here, but about like, here's what this got me in terms of like my mental capability, how I actually started to believe I could do things I've never done before, you know, that kind of thing. So good question. Does that answer your question? Yeah. Cool.